Hey guys, Shaky here, aka Genie. You guys have been waiting for a while for this episode of Car v Car. We're finally here with the newer version comparisons of the Massacro and the Jester race car versions, of course. So we've already figured out from the normal versions, the Massacro has the exact same top speed as the previous one. However, it's got slightly tweaked handling, whereas the Jester, on the other hand, has got slightly enhanced acceleration for the race car version over the normal one. So what does this mean for overall aspects of comparison? Well, starting off with the handling. Although the Massacro does have a better turning circle now over the previous version of the Massacro, when we're comparing it to the Jester will still dominate with the turning circle and the response time when taking a corner. Also, the Jester is going to carry way more speed around a corner than the Massacro, where you have to sort of sacrifice a lot of speed to take that corner efficiently. Although, you know, the Massacro race car version is more comfortable when taking a corner than the previous Massacro version, the Jester is still dominant. Especially now with the greater acceleration, you're going to get the efficiency because it's more predictable when the car is going to understeer rather than oversteer with the previous Jester version. So with that comfortability of knowing what the car is going to respond like on every corner, Jester certainly has the efficiency for handling. So acceleration, GTA logic 0 to 60, 3.17 seconds for the Jester here, whereas in the Massacro, alright, so very long interval, it takes long to get to 60 from 0, 3.29 seconds, which is crazy now. So with that enhancement for the acceleration has made a difference to the Jester, and it literally shoots off the line. So if you're doing a race with a 3, 2, 1 countdown and on the go, the Jester will shoot off quicker than the Massacro. But here's the thing, from a racing perspective, the gap that is caused at the start is about 0.5 seconds. But then the Massacro is going to easily overtake on the straight. But this depends completely on this track. That's where it gets interesting. So the balance is there. You guys can see it's certainly viable between both these cars to compete with each other. And it's extremely close, and it's going to be neck on neck, as you'll see during this episode. Torque-wise, we all know that Jester's a four-wheel drive, so it's going to dominate with more power over the Massacro. And, you know, one could simply argue, wait a minute, in real life, the Massacro would have great acceleration, the Jester would have better launch speed. That is true, but in GTA logic 0 to 60, Jester seems to be superior there. So damage wise, both of them, it costed $300 for the first initial impact. Both of them are extremely durable, by the way. And customization options for the Massacro, there's 28 options in total, which I've counted individually for each part of the customization. Whereas for the Jester, we'll see now there's 25 options. Although both of these have extremely insane amount of bloody options for customization, which is awesome, of course, which I sort of wish, other cars did have. But hopefully, we do get to see more in the future. But the Massacro will take you here for the points with the extra 3 options available through these comparisons. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting, and this is where I've slightly changed it for this particular episode because I had to do so you guys get a better perspective between the two, and sort of I can evidently show you that these two are extremely competitive with each other as opposed to the other sports cars. So the Jester race car version, you can see how much of a difference it makes now with the lap time. So I tested it on the Tongva roads, and the lap times show that they were literally milliseconds apart on this particular track after pushing it multiple times for each lap. And these were the limits that I can push with these two. I could not push any further. And then I went on and tested it onto a city track. So the city track made a huge difference for the Jester, whereas the Massacro, it made no difference whatsoever. Now we all know the Massacro is a very heavy car and it sticks to the ground firmly, so it doesn't really get, affected by bumps or grass patches as much as it does with the Jester. The Jester actually takes advantage of the variables given on the track. So any little bump through the acceleration when you shoot out of a corner, it benefits the Jester more than the Massacro for some reason. And I have noticed that many times, because when I exit out of a corner, when I'm behind a Massacro with the race car version of the Jester, I seem to easily overtake every time I hit a little bump on the ground and when the road is not flat. So you can see there's a sort of advantage that the Jester has already through its acceleration, the way the car's suspensions work, sort of similar to the Zentorno in fact. So you see the difference there, 0.07 second difference between the two. The Massacro will take it on the Tonga roads, and you got to consider that particular track doesn't have that many straights to optimize Massacro's top speed. So you can see how much of a difference the handling actually made to the race car version. Remember, the older version of the Massacro would not be able to beat the time of the newer version of the Jester. That's what you also need to understand. So on the city tracks, on this particular sort of circuit track, I guess, on Komodo Grand Prix, this is my race, there's few sections where there's slightly, you know, bumps, and you'd expect this on city roads. There's a few potholes there and then, and these little potholes, you know, give the Jester a big advantage over the Massacro, I guess, like I've said. So although it still comes down to the milliseconds, there's a significant gap between the lap times and the city roads between the Jester and the Massacro over the Tonga roads. But what this video is showing is that depending on the track, regardless, both of these cars are extremely competitive with each other. So depending on the driver, of course, you know, you could do well with either one, but you can certainly compete with either one of these as well. So that is basically what we're gathering for this episode. So you see here, the Jester's actually going to get, you know, 1 minute 11.840, whereas the Massacro gets 112.340. So that's quite a big of a gap, you know, 0.5 seconds, kind of crazy compared to the Tonga roads, where 0.07, where it's flat out roads with no variables whatsoever. So this is sort of perspective we're getting between the two tracks from different locations and different surfaces and different variables. So there's a lot more variables on city tracks, and there's no variables on flat roads and Tonga roads. And you can see the differences between lap times there as well. So generally speaking, the Jester does take it, mainly because of its handling and its efficiency around corners and it's carrying a lot of speed. And of course, now the improved acceleration. But don't forget, these two tracks are extremely short. They don't have that many straights to help, you know, benefit Massacro's top speed and optimize that. So obviously, if you get a longer track with massive straights, the Massacro will certainly get a quicker lap time over the Jester. But that's extremely, you know, dependent on the track. But certainly, if there's a track that's got a balance of both straights and corners, sorry, the Massacro and Jester will be extremely close in lap times, as you saw from the first track. So that is what I'm trying to say here. Other than that, the question is it worth getting these two? I would certainly say yes. I've got it myself. Which one do I personally use for racing? For my driving style, I prefer the Jester, but equally speaking, I don't mind using the Massacro as well. Time to time, certainly viable as well. So definitely buy both. I would suggest to buy both and certainly replace your old ones, because these two are certainly better than the older versions. So hopefully you guys have a better understanding between the two now, and have seen this comparison and understand different point of views and different aspects of the cars. So yeah, I've done my best, guys. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Subscribe for more GTA 5 content. I'll see you guys soon. Check it. Sign out.